Have you or a loved one been charged or accused of a crime? If so, the stress can leave anyone feeling helpless and alone. But you don't have to be alone. Hi, I'm Dave Maldonado, and I've successfully defended Montanans for over a decade in these situations. So if you're tired of being scared, let's get you prepared. To see how, visit BigSkyDefender.com today.
You are not alone. Visit BigSkyDefender.com to find out more on how you can fight back against local and federal criminal charges.
Tuesdays with Tootell. What's up, everybody? Been a couple weeks, and Ryan Tootell tried to get his way down to Texas. We'll get to that story in just a minute. But you are wearing your Green Bay Packers gear.
Yes, I am.
As you know, I am passionate about not being passionate about rooting on sports teams, except one. And there's really nothing that has me hanging on, except for like how good Randy Moss was like 20 years ago. But other than that, like, what do I got? You know, like Justin Jefferson's pretty sweet. He's going to go somewhere else.
Well, he's pretty sweet. It's a little bit understated there, but JJ's the truth.
I mean, he's one of the best players in the whole NFL. What I'm saying though is there's this whole deal with fans where, oh, you like the Packers, therefore you hate the Bears, the Vikings, and the Lions, and the Cowboys, because those are the Packers' rivals. I have never hated the Packers for any other reasons besides you love the Packers, and the Packers are just lame. They just are lame. They have never had cool players besides Aaron Rodgers, and he's only cool when he's throwing it. He's not cool in any other form or fashion. That said, I was watching the game yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, am I actually a Packers fan? Because, I mean, Chris Watson was on Nuanez Now with us once upon a time. I've interviewed Tucker Kraft. Like, they're the youngest team in the NFL. Jordan Love is so sweet. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I actually enjoy watching this team. And then I was in my own personal hell because I bet on the Cowboys, which is my least favorite thing on the earth to do because I hate the Cowboys. And so here we are. That's my Sunday afternoon for you, Gus. How you doing? What's going on?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. I mean, how do you think I'm doing? I'm absolutely, I've got my new little baby. She's 4 months old, and there's a lot of holding at this stage still. And it is such a hard thing for me to watch football with the child and not throw her through a ceiling, drop her on the floor, scream and make her start crying in total fear while my Packers are just going tutty, interception, pick six, everything that you ever wanted to do. I mean, it was just beautiful. And, you talk about a lot of times you have premonitions, especially like with Big Sky games, about how stuff is going to go. And I'm not going to say I saw 48-16 coming on down the pike, but I am not in an area, but I had every set in my mind to go lay a little bit of paper on Green Bay on that game, because this is what the Cowboys do, and B, I've been watching the Packers week in and week out. And if there's one thing that you can say about Green Bay, they're the youngest team in the league, but they genuinely, almost like a college team, have literally improved. Like, you can see how they've gotten better. And it's not just, they lost 5 of their first 7 games of the season and then they went on a big win streak or whatever. Yeah, that's true. But it's not just like they got hot or they just figured it out. No, this is obviously the youngest team in the league, the youngest team to ever make the postseason. And they have gotten better each week in, week out, going through growing pains, trying to figure it out. But it's also just like the improvement. And on the third touchdown of the day yesterday, when Jordan Love standing there on his 20-yard, or on the 20 in the red zone, catches the blitz that they're going to come in, walks up to the line, calls out his protections, knows exactly what to do. I mean, the command of the offense and of the situation. And then to just do the backup. How many times it's the worst footwork in the league, Jordan Love, right? Just throwing it off his back foot every time, running straight backwards, but he's giving himself that extra half second and laces it into Hicks for a touchdown. And you just go, oh my God. Like, he's he has all the way solved it. Like, he's figured it out. And how much of that is on Dallas? Maybe plenty. And Dallas played like they had 100 miles worth of string strung around them. They were so tight. I mean, they were the pressure of supposing to be good, this year, and this is the breakthrough. And they absolutely caved in every way that it's possible to cave. So it's two-way street, but I'm going to take the high road with the Green Bay Packers and just say, hell yeah, bring on San Francisco.
Man, one more NFL question, then we'll talk some Griz national championship. You locked in the middle of nowhere in Casper, Wyoming. For those that haven't read the story, go to SkylineSportsMT.com. I have to laugh about it now. I actually felt totally
me too.
horrible for you.
Oh,
one more NFL question though.
Yeah.
Given the upside, the poise, the charisma, and the skill set, name the quarterbacks right off the top of your head right now in the NFL that you would take over Jordan Love. Because my list is definitively only about 3 or 4 players long.
Yeah, I mean,
because you texted me, Love greater than Purdy.
Well,
Man, love's greater than everybody.
I only sent that because you asked me that very question. Would you rather have Purdy or Jordan Love? 2 weeks ago. I think you certainly got to say, okay, yeah, Mahomes, probably Joe Burrow, Josh Allen today, yes, probably. Although
I agree,
it's an open that even is debatable.
What about the MVP of the NFL? Lamar Jackson's going to be the MVP.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Lamar, Jordan Love now officially has as many good playoff performances as Lamar Jackson. That's fact.
Yeah. But Lamar's sweet. So, yeah, certainly Lamar. But, I would still take Jordan Love right now over Herbert, probably. Although, here's the thing, man. We want to talk about these quarterbacks and compare them. But you cannot divorce any of these guys from their situation.
That's true.
And I think that I think if you saw anything, you saw Matt LaFleur just pound Mike McCarthy.
Oh, that's all I kept thinking about was what is Aaron Rodgers thinking right now? Because Aaron Rodgers wanted to blame all of it on we don't have any good young players and Matt LaFleur's an idiot and I'm God and everybody else sucks. And
I don't know. Now that's not quite the way it happened. But I will say this, that and they talked about this on the telecast as well, and I thought absolutely rightfully so. But when you have Aaron Rodgers, and especially when you're coming in as a first-time ever NFL head coach, of course you are going to articulate your offense to him and what he does well and what he wants to do, and you would be insane not to do it. But also, Matt LaFleur, this is what he does. He's an offensive dude. And now where he just gets to do his whole thing, break out the chemistry set and run the thing the way you want to do it,
that's right.
Which still is always you're going to articulate that to the players that you have. That's what coaching is.
Right, but Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers the same age. It's a lot easier to do with a 24-year-old quarterback than it is with a 39-year-old quarterback.
They ain't the same age.
Aaron Rodgers is older, probably.
Rodgers older. That's right, I think. So, but yes, exactly. And so now, and I mean, everybody's on, on the Cowboys defense and all the busted coverages and everything, but, and that's fair, but it's not for nothing. The reason Luke Musgraves doesn't have a single Dallas Cowboy in his entire TV screenshot when he's catching a touchdown, waiting for the ball to fall out of the sky. Terrible throw. I mean, it's an awful pass, actually, but there's just nobody there. Why? Because Matt LaFleur figured it out. He beat Dan Quinn, man. He knew the tendencies. He knew what to do. He knew how to drag a guy across the middle, get both safeties to jump up and leave dudes wide open on the second crosser, and it's just there all day. So, that's that, but it's the whole combination of everything. The reason I bring that up is if Josh Allen was with the Green Bay Packers, I think he'd be a markedly better quarterback than what he is in Buffalo. And
Well,
he works in Buffalo because of the weather and because of all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think Josh Allen's a complete stud. And he
Yeah.
throws the ball to the wrong team too much. But he's also in a situation that sort of enables that in a certain sense.
Oh,
Because
for
they
sure.
want him to be who he is. Jordan Love's thrown 21 touchdowns and 1 pick in his last 10 games. Pretty good.
All right, let's talk some Big Sky stuff.
Yeah.
Get to your story of getting locked in the Case IH
God.
red zone or wherever the hell you were at. But
God almighty.
Your reaction from the game, though. I mean, Montana now, it seems like it's been forever, but actually it was only 8 days ago as we record this on Monday, January 15th, that Montana lost 23-3. Part of that's just because how fast the news cycle goes. Part of that's because of I mean, how much overturn he can have. We'll get to Clifton McDowell leaving here in just a little while, but we can sort of laid out all the mismatches and matchup advantages for the Griz going into this game. I actually thought they took advantage of several of their matchup advantages. They didn't take advantage of several uncharacteristic mistakes on South Dakota State's part. That then colors the sort of response to my next question, I'm sure. But I've been asking everybody this. What do you feel is the gap between now the two-time defending, reigning national champions from South Dakota State and Montana and perhaps even the rest of the field?
I thought the gap was exactly what it looked like in the national championship, which is the gap is 20-3 or 23-3, and the gap is a definitively better team. And the gap is, if you play the game 10 times, Montana probably wins it once.
Even if they take advantage of those early opportunities, right?
So this is the thing. I don't want to, well, actually I do. I'm going to sit here and just give you and me all the credit in the world because we are the seers and the seances and the voyeurs or the clairvoyants or whatever. I don't know. So half of that was sexual. I'm sorry. I don't know why.
Hey, it's YouTube, baby. We can do whatever we want.
We can do whatever we want. Let me take my sweatshirt off. So in the Tuesdays with Tootell podcast that we did immediately prior to the national championship game, we said that the chance that Montana has to win this game is they got to get it done early in the football game, believing that South Dakota State maybe isn't the sharpest version of themselves, especially early. If there's mistakes, you got to cash in on those, and you got to get up because the talent, just in terms of total team talent, dudes on the field, is with the Jackrabbits. And over the course of an entire game, that ultimately is going to win out. So you have to be able to find ways to exploit the failings, the missteps of your opponent early. You got to play pretty much a perfect game as the Grizzly in terms of Montana and get that. And you know what? They had those opportunities and it never happened. Obviously, the fourth down, I mean, for all the world, it looks like Gillum's going in. I mean, he's got his momentum. He's turning the corner. You're like, touchdown. And the dude grabs the ball. You tell me, I forget who he's, all American.
Adam Bach. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
Adam
great
Bach.
example of what you're talking about. Eli Gilman is a phenomenal player. Adam Bach is the best inside linebacker in the country.
That's right.
That's the best inside linebacker in the country, being a little bit better than one of the best running backs in the country.
And it almost felt like Gilman, I mean, he's so young. If in another year, he probably does score that touchdown with the strength and the building and the whatever. But also, he had the angle. Like, he probably could have put a little hezzy in there and like rolled over the top and gotten in. But he's just like, I'm going in. Well, guess what? No, you're not. And it was a stone cold stop. It was not. That's not even controversial. That was a straight up 6 inches short, clear as day. Ball never got to the goal line. Period. You had all your momentum come to a complete and total halt the moment Adam Bach got to you and got on the football and made just an unbelievable play. And I mean, you could say, I mean, that's the play of that game, honestly. Like, who knows if that goes for a touchdown? The Griz are up. They got 10 points. They're feeling it. How that works out, I think that ultimately SDSU still finds a way because they just went on straight lockdown. But that was the moment right there where it just all went away for Montana, like the opportunities. Obviously, not scoring anything on 2 interceptions. You know, you get the plays that you want in the first half in terms of the turnovers, and you can't cash in. the second half of the game, I mean, it was the first four possessions, right? Where they go touchdown, touchdown, and Montana goes 3 and out, 3 and out. You know, the Montana offense was utterly and completely confounded and outmatched, period, for the entire second half of that football game. They didn't play bad per se. They were you just can't do this. You know, you can't push the rock up the mountain. That's where I thought the biggest gap was shown. The Montana offense being utterly unable to do. They had one drive that they had an opportunity to like convert into points in the second half, but by and large, it was just completely stifling. And so if you're not in a position where you're ahead and can try and hold on, I thought the defense played well. I thought the defense played really well for the most part in that game. They had 2 big drives for touchdowns back to back, and then they kind of got back on board. Montana did defensively. And for 45, 50 minutes of that football game played really, really good, strong defense overall. But the fact of the matter is to beat that team, everything has to go right, even when you're as good as Montana. I mean, this makes the Montana State game early in the year look pretty impressive, right? I mean, when that thing went right down to the wire, for sure. That's why everybody was, and was rightfully so, was on Montana State for just about the entire season. I mean, that was a hell of a football game and the biggest test that ultimately SDSU ever got. But you know, everybody talks about getting better, and I don't think a team improved at a higher clip and to a greater degree than the Montana Grizzlies did over the course of the season. But let's not forget, just because you're the defending national champions, and just because you got a bunch of senior studs and All-Americans, doesn't mean you can't also get better over the course of a year. And I thought probably that happened. I mean, when you go 63-0 in the semifinals, you've done something right with the first 12, 13 weeks before it, you know? And so that's what it was. But they certainly had an opportunity in the first 20 minutes of that football game, and they were not able to capitalize. And that was ultimately the undoing of Montana in that football game. And this is the thing that sucked to me the most, is that at the end of the day, it was I hate to say it was a boring game. Like it just wasn't that interesting. It was just a lot of
interesting in the first half, and then in South Dakota State fundamentally changed what they were doing, and you could tell they like scripted up some stuff at the halftime locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Then they came out, it was like boom, 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 and then you're like, oh, that's why these guys have won 28 in a row.
And I give Montana a lot of credit because it looked like it could be a boat race in that second half, right? It looked like SDSU might just be out the gate and go for 40, and Montana did not let that happen. And you know, Clifton McDowell clearly compromised physically, but also ineffectual. And at some point you go, I mean, do you give Ayat a look here? You know? And I'm not talking about the last minute 30 that he actually ended up coming in and playing. I'm talking about, hey, there's still opportunity here. I was thinking 100%. I was thinking about Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama in the national championship against Georgia. And at halftime, what does Nick Saban do? He rolls out a true freshman who's never played for a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and they beat Georgia because he felt like Tua had the skills that he needed in terms of throwing the football down the field to get it done in that game. I have no idea if that was ever on the table for Bobby Hauck. And for the offense of the Grizzlies to bring Ayat out there. I understand sticking with Clifton, but between being ineffectual and clearly being physically compromised, like not being able to run, not being able to get out of pressure, which has been a big part of his game this whole year, you go, well, what can it hurt? We're already not getting anything done offensively. You know, if you're Montana, maybe you roll the kid out there and see if there's some magic in it. Hindsight's 20/20, I guess, but certainly in the moment, you know, in the third quarter, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, I was sitting there going, this looks like Ayat time to me. I don't know what it's just going to be more of the same. And it was more of the same all the way to the end.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road, pump it up. Oh, yeah.
2 pieces of copy editing for you there, because I know we'll get the YouTube commenters. I was 59-0 instead of 63-0 in the semifinals. But the point well taken. You killed them.
Let's get it right.
And the Griz 2 turnovers forced in the first half. One was an interception. One was actually a fumble on the punt.
Oh, it was a fumble. Yeah.
Point well taken, though. A couple of things I wrote down there to get to. First of all, I think that one thing you can say when it comes to what's the gap. The Griz beat people this year for a variety of reasons. Their togetherness, their belief, and I think that both teams had that. I don't think either side had an advantage in this national championship game. Their mental toughness, I think the Griz are incredibly mentally tough. I think South Dakota State's the most mentally tough team I've seen. I really do. I think that they are, in terms of, and they talked about it in the weeks leading up to the game. They talked about how they have a mental toughness coach, not just a strength and conditioning coach. They have a specific mental toughness coach. And they kept panning to the guy on the sidelines, and he'd have the guys looking at him, staring him right in the eyes and saying, you could see what happened. What happened? Let's go through it. How are we going to get through this? I think that's why, even when they were in dogfights against Southern Illinois in the regular season, when they ended up pulling away for a 17-3 win, or Villanova, they're down 12-0 at home in the quarterfinals of the play, and they come all the way back and win 23-12. Or this game feasibly could have been down 10 or even 17-7 at halftime. Instead, they're up 7-3, but it hasn't really gone their way. But then it's boom, 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 right out the gates. We are back to being the best team in the country. We bury you.
Yeah.
We stomp on your throat. So, and you can just go on down the line. The Griz are super deep on defense. South Dakota State was playing like 25 guys on defense. I couldn't even keep track of their defensive line rotation.
Right.
They were playing guy after guy after guy. I think that's why, I think their defense somehow got underrated, even though they're the first national championship defense in the history of college football to give up less than 10 points per game and go undefeated and win a national championship. That's the first time that's happened in Division I history. Single-digit points per game and an undefeated national championship season.
And how many total points in the postseason? Like 15 or something like that?
Let's see. They gave up 12 against Villanova and 3 against Montana. That's it. 15. 146 to 15.
That's an ass kicking by every measure.
No doubt. And so that's what I'm getting at is all of the things that Montana was so good at that were their edge in games that are maybe more the intangible things, South Dakota State was better at. Right. That's why I think, though, if you're Bobby Houck and the Griz, you're not thinking, oh, man, we got to tear this thing down and start over. Because there's been times where, like you hit this brick wall and you had like no chance. Like the Cats in Brookings last year. They were this juggernaut team that were running the ball down everybody's throats. They go undefeated in league, and then they roll through to the to the semifinals of the playoffs. And then they get their teeth kicked in Brookings, right? They're getting blown off the ball. And so then their whole narrative all offseason was, we got to get bigger. We got to get stronger. We're going after South Dakota State. We're going to have a measuring stick week 2. They did that. For the Griz, though, I think it's just keep getting better at what you're already good at. Like, you're deep. You can be deeper. You're tough. You can be tougher. Like, all of those things. But I think that if you're Bobby Houck, though, you say, hey, we're doing it the right way. We're doing it in a very similar fold, and we'll get into the personnel stuff because I do think South Dakota State had some personnel advantages, particularly on offense. But in terms of the intangible stuff, it seems like Montana, it's a similar formula, and I think that they're not that far off.
No question. So whether it's right or wrong, Bobby Houck's going to do what he does, period.
Correct.
And I think you have to say it is right. Like, from a football standpoint, like the way that he's doing it, he's been to 4 national championships, man. And this team, again, you can't but sit here and just laud the Grizzly players, the coaches, the whole program, everybody, for what they accomplished and the way that they did it, and really coming out of the blue to make this run. So yeah, the tearing it down or whatever. No, it's just the next It's just the next iteration. But yes, you see the gap, right? You see where that and so how are you going to close? Do you need a mental toughness coach? Do you need a sports psychologist? Who's a McCarthy, right? The Michigan quarterback checking in with the sports psychologist on the sideline.
Guess who that is?
Huh?
Guess who that is?
Oh, he's been there forever.
The sports psychologist for Michigan is Leon Costello's brother-in-law. Montana State's athletic director's wife, her brother is that guy.
That's amazing. Well, and he's been there at Michigan for a long, long time.
Yeah. She was like, posting on Instagram. She's like, I'm so proud of my brother for winning a national championship at Michigan. And I'm like, looking, I'm like, who is it? And then I like did some research. I was like, oh, that's pretty sweet. What a cool job.
So, you know, those are areas. I mean, look, man, like that's some quote unquote new age sort of stuff when it comes to like the psychology and the mental, like not the mental stuff like locking in on a game plan. I'm talking about like how are you as a person as it pertains to the sport and then just your overall being as a human. That's a very new holistic sort of way to engage sports. And I would think that would not be something that Bobby Hauck has necessarily. It's certainly not something he came up doing. And would he be open to something like that? You know, is that something that he would avail the team of, would see benefit in, or would he say, no, we're going the other way? I don't know. And I'm not saying there's a right and wrong on that. I'm just saying, is that a possible piece that you could include that maybe hasn't been there? But the other thing that I'm more interested in is, do you need to get to that level? Or was this very clearly the best team in the country for the year of our Lord 20 and 23, but in the year of our Lord 20 and 24, it's a brand new ball game with a much flatter playing field. I mean, you talk about the defending national championship team returning a ton of dudes, the handoff at the coaching level that was just, you know, handmade for this group and this team to make this run.
Right.
And they did it, and they did what they were supposed to do. But when North Dakota State was doing it, you didn't even know who the next guy up was, and you knew it didn't matter because they're just going to be so much better than everybody else all the time. They're just going to go on another run and another run and another run, and that's just the way it is. I'm not saying this isn't the case, but it's going to be years before we'll know that, you know what, actually that's what they've got in Brookings. Because what you could easily have is the greatest, you know, team recruiting group to ever come together in the history of the school that made their run and now runs, and tip of the cap to them. And now they graduate a bunch of All-Americans, and they're still going to have presumably great players, but not just head and shoulders better than the rest of the country level players there. So, I don't know. I'm totally ignorant of what the next, you know, group is at South Dakota State. But are we chasing, and by we I mean everybody in the country, South Dakota State now the way that we were chasing North Dakota State before?
Right.
To me, the answer, at least so far, is no. They haven't established themselves as that. So you gotta. So maybe it can be you then this year. But clearly, that's where a national championship level is. And Montana was close. Montana State was close. They were not there.
Yeah. Well, so to come back at you there, I totally understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying in a certain stroke. But I will say this: I think that the common thread between every single national champion over the last 13 seasons in the FCS, and make no mistake, there's only been 3 schools. It's been North Dakota State, James Madison once, and South Dakota State twice. North Dakota State, 9 of them, James Madison 1 of them, South Dakota State 2 of them. That's it.
Right.
I guess Sam Houston had that spring championship. They beat South Dakota State because Mark Gronowski broke his leg. If Mark Gronowski doesn't go down that game, maybe SDSU's work is a three-peat instead of back-to-back. But if you're the Griz, you're looking at this, I think that you realize that you have reached a national championship contending level when it comes to your swagger, your bravado, your mental toughness, your togetherness, your belief, your defense, your special teams, and your offensive skill guys. All of those things are national championship level. But if you look at all of those teams, what do they all have? One of the 2 or 3, if not definitively, best quarterbacks in the country, even though they get all the credit for being ground and pound and running the ball and, great offensive lines and awesome running backs and sweet defenses. North Dakota State still had 3 straight NFL quarterbacks, including 2 guys that were top 3 picks in the entire NFL draft. And then South Dakota State has had the single best quarterback in the United States of America, the Walter Payton Award winner in Mark Gronowski. That's one thing. The other part is you have to have one of the best offensive lines in the country. The Griz have gotten better on the offensive line. I think that they are good on the offensive line, if not very good. Very good ain't it. You got to be one of the top 5 in the country. You got to be one. Yeah. I actually think you have. Montana State's been one of the top 5 in the country the last couple of years. You got to be one of the top 2 in the country, literally. Yeah. I mean, I was going through FCS players that are playing in the NFL playoffs for a little segment on Nuanez now. First of all, North Dakota State has more guys right now playing the NFL playoffs than the entire Big Sky Conference. That's ridiculous. They also have 6 starting NFL offensive linemen, not guys that are on rosters like Dylan Cook, on a roster or whatever. They got dudes that are starting. Like Cody Mock tonight is going to be starting for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have guys starting across the league, 6 of them on the offensive line. I don't know if you can get to that level. North Dakota State has this like pretty much magical formula. Like not even Iowa and Alabama is producing like offensive linemen at this level. But I do think, look at South Dakota State. They got 2 guys in Garrett Greenfield and Mason McCormick that are going to the league. You have to be better. And I know Montana's gotten light years better from where they were when Bobby Houck took over for Bob Stitt. It's still not close to where you need to be. So I think that's the thing. That's how you close the gap. You got to be better. Like, let's say this. Just trade offensive lines and trade quarterbacks in that game. What's the score?
Right. Totally. And I'm going to say that I couldn't agree with you more on the offensive line. Well, I couldn't agree with you more across the board. But when it comes to the offensive line, there is a lot of work to do, primarily in the recruiting world, to get guys in that can play at that level. And, for NDSU, it's the old rich get richer situation, right? Like once you start putting guys in the league, then you recruit other dudes that are league potential or league bound guys going, hey, this is your path. You think you had a better chance of making it in the NFL by going to Iowa or by going to Kansas State? You're gonna come here, play 45 games, win 3 national championships, and be a 2nd-round pick. Come on down to Fargo.
Yep.
And you can't sell that until you are that. And Montana is working on getting to that point. And by the way, they have been that. The Grizzlies have had.
They have it. They have
all pro level offensive linemen in the league.
Think about this though. You're referencing recruiting. I do think there's a certain element of recruiting, but I think it's almost exclusively about development. You look at like the tie that binds in North Dakota State, they've had the same strength coach for 25 years, and he's the guy that signs off on offensive lines. Hey, that guy has a body type where I could develop him. Like Cody Mock, he's from Balfour, North Dakota, man. That's population 900. And he's starting in the NFL. Like they didn't win a recruiting battle to go get him. They just let him come to their school.
But it might be semantics because it is recruiting, and recruiting is finding that dude.
That's right.
Like, yeah, so you didn't have to beat anybody, but like you got to go. You got to know what the body type is and know how you're going to physically build these dudes up, and you got to find them.
And that's my biggest question. My biggest question is, do these guys exist in this is like the eternal question. No one has the answer to this anymore. Like, do these guys just not exist in Montana anymore? Or are they going elsewhere? Or are they not playing football? Or what's the deal? Because, like, again, if you look at all the guys that have come out of NDSU and South Dakota State, where are they all from? They're all from 2 or 3 hours from whether it's Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, or North Dakota and South Dakota. They're all right there. Where there isn't, like right now, Journey Grimsrud for Montana and Justice Perkins at Montana State, and I guess Marcus Weir at Montana State. Those are the only Montana guys that are even on the offensive lines. Like there isn't even there's not even guys that like you just missed on or whatever. Like I guess Dylan Rollins could have been a cat or a Griz, probably a cat if he would have stayed in state. But he went to BYU and then went on a mission and whatever. But I don't know. That's the eternal question is it because Montana, the state, is not gifting these guys to the programs anymore? I don't know.
It is. It's hard to know. And if they're not, then go find them. You know what I mean? Like, do what you got to do. Like, go find. You need 10 guys, right? You need 5 offensive linemen, and you need rotation guys and development guys behind them so that you can always plug and play. You just gotta figure it out. Like, you got to go get them. On the quarterback side of things, though, and I don't want to put too much pressure or like presumption here, but there's no reason to think that Keely Ayat can't be a Walter Payton award-winning level player over the course of, if he was to stay at Montana and play his career out there. Now, I've seen him play just like everybody else for 2 quarters of football in his entire life. He's 18 years old. Okay.
Right, against Northern Colorado, who won 0 games.
But you can see it. When he comes out, the instincts, the poise, the arm, the move, like, he's a quarterback. That's the thing, is like, a lot of these, even Clifton McDowell. Clifton McDowell's a quarterback. He's an athlete.
That's right.
And he's playing quarterback, and he's good at it. Ayat is a straight up quarterback. He's not a wide receiver who decided to go back. His daddy's a quarterback. He's a quarterback.
True.
And if they can keep him and develop him, and coaching is so important, man. And does Montana on their staff? I think they do, but do they have a program in place? Because what's happened ever since Bobby Hauck's been here, they get into that portal and they bring somebody in, and it's like a one and done thing. I mean, they had Dalton Steed for 2 years because Bobby recruited him. But other than that, it's been like, we're just going to find the next grad senior to come in and play for a season, this mercenary thing. They have yet to bring in a freshman out of high school or even a young player out of the portal and develop them over time and let them be the guy. And will they do that? I don't know. But if we were ever going to do it, this seems to be the kid, doesn't it?
No doubt. And I wonder if it's not even a Bobby Hauck thing. I was looking this up yesterday because I was just totally compelled by this. Since Brian Ayat graduated, guess how many first-team all-conference quarterbacks Montana has had? This is over the last 25 years.
2.
1. Craig Oaks, 2004, and he was also a transfer. There's only been one guy that came to them as a freshman and went for 5 years that earned all conference honors of any sort, first or second team.
Grace Jensen didn't earn all conference?
Grace Jensen was never an all conference guy. No. Cole Berquist was the only other one. He was second team all conference in 07 and 08, and that's it. So it's been a thing. It's so crazy, though, to think that Montana was like the place where some of the best quarterbacks in the history of the Big Sky Conference played, and now they've just been searching and searching for quarterbacks.
It is, and I mean, again, you want to talk about what the state doesn't deliver. I don't think that Montana develops great quarterbacks overall, in general. I think that for a lot of different reasons, but like, I don't think that you see a ton of great quarterbacking prospects coming from the state of Montana. In terms of this.
Used to be the best quarterback in the state of Montana could go wherever they wanted. Dave Dickinson just happened to go to Montana, like Ryan Leaf, Brady Leaf. Like, these guys were getting recruited by.
And I mean, you could even call me out like on a Brock Osweiler type of deal or something like that. So
that's still 15 years ago, though, man.
But the other thing is like, honestly, I mean, I don't want to like sell this on down the river, but like, it's kind of the same reason we don't have a lot of golfers or baseball players. You can only do it, but so much.
True. Because
of where we are. Like, you want fullbacks and linebackers, come to Montana, baby. You want speed on the outside and quarterbacks, it's not so much. And obviously you're going to have athletes, the Junior Bergens of the world and so on, that are just that dude. But like, we don't develop a fast track in the state of Montana. We're playing 15 below zero. Neither of my vehicles started today, right? I'm like dead in the water. Why? Well, because look out it, you know? And so, it's not, you can't just sit there and throw the ball 360 days a year and do that in terms of particularly the passing element of the game.
We'll keep
If life has become overwhelming, crazy, and hectic, then now is the perfect time to try the healing powers of CBD. Greenhouse Pharmacy has a full CBD apothecary with the largest selection of whole plant, full spectrum CBD products in the state of Montana. Choose from high quality brands and products like tinctures, balms, coffees, and tea, edibles, and so much more. Plus, Greenhouse Pharmacy offers exclusive products such as relaxing bath bombs, soaking salts, pain patches, and lotions. Visit Greenhouse Pharmacy on 3rd Street across from the Good Food Store.
He's got a different Green Bay Packers hat on. I got a different shirt on. This is what happens when you split the Zooms up between 2 days. But only 2 more things to get to, Gus. One, the Griz got a new quarterback transfer this morning. Logan Fife from Fresno State. It's always funny because we get fans and listeners always text me, is this guy good? And it's like, well, I don't know. You know, he played several games at Fresno, which would indicate that he's fairly good. He's also leaving Fresno, which indicates that he probably wasn't going to play there. And I don't really know. But
I believe that Fresno State just got a big time transfer, like a weirdly big time quarterback into Fresno State, which may have precipitated this move. Now that is all rattling around in like the nether regions of my mind, so I obviously need to confirm all that. But anyway, for some reason that's in there for me right now.
It wouldn't be surprising, only because Jeff. So Jalen Henderson, who was at Fresno State, he transferred to Texas A&M.
Okay.
But that was last spring.
Yeah, Henderson was at A&M. He's the kid who got hurt on like the first play of their bowl game. Terrible injury, like jumped up and then landed on his own arm, kind of thing. That was wild, and what a specimen that kid is. I hope that he's able to come back from that injury.
Well, I guess the couple things I would say is, one, Fresno State always has pretty good quarterbacks. It's a place you can recruit pretty good quarterbacks too.
For sure.
Jeff Tedford's back at Fresno State. He's a great quarterbacks coach. He coached both Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff at Cal. So
right.
Recruit them. And
obviously Derek Carr played at Fresno State, and Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Fresno State. So I mean, they get some dudes.
Yeah. If they brought in a big time guy, wouldn't surprise me. The question though is, what do you think of the Griz bringing in a transfer quarterback to replace an outgoing transfer quarterback? And what do you think of the potential competition now with Kealili Ayat?
Well, I mean, I think it's the least surprising thing in the world. This is what Bobby Hauck has done every single season that he's been at the University of Montana, is bringing in a transfer quarterback, either to play or to create competition, or both, And so if you can go, I mean, in some sense, it is the job of the coaching staff at every D1 school and every sport to acquire the most and best talent that they're able to acquire. And if you can get a guy who is maybe ready to play right now that you think has an opportunity to be great, you bring him in. And it doesn't matter if you got a kid that you also really believe in that you recruited that's a legacy guy. Like, I mean, that just, I think that is just part of the deal. And I mean, we're in such a weird thing now where we've seen guys start for an entire season as, say, sophomores or juniors at programs as quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Have good seasons and lose their job the following year on the same school with the same staff because they found somebody else that they think can go do it. And the idea of something like loyalty or deserving it or anything like that just ain't, that's not it. Like, that's not the way the world works now. And so, if you can bring in a guy that, and by the way, what do we know for sure about Bobby Hauck, right? He always wants competition at every position. It wouldn't matter if he had Jordan Love playing quarterback for him right now, he'd still be bringing guys in. And obviously you got to have depth anyways, so the more players you can have, the better. Is there potential conflict and all that kind of thing and guys leaving as a result of that? Certainly. You open the doors for all that, but those doors are already so wide open that I think that it probably doesn't really matter.
And the quarterback carousel, I can't imagine what it'd be like to try to track this as coaches. There's so much opportunity, but it's also just dizzying. I mean, this
Yeah.
whole thing came about because Logan Fife actually originally committed to Minnesota, but then Minnesota gets Max Brosmer, who was the runner-up for the Walter Payton Award at New Hampshire. And I guess this kid doesn't want to compete there. So now he's coming in here. So fascinating deal as the world turns for sure. Okay,
Yeah.
last thing. Tell us your Frisco story because you were on your way to Frisco, you got stuck in Casper, you wrote about it, but I need to hear it from you live and in person.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was wild. So I for those of you who may be picking this up cold and not necessarily be aware of some of the backstory here, but I've started a trucking company. I'm an owner operator of a hotshot trucking company, Venture Forth Trucking, up here in Polson, Montana. And I'll go, as most truckers do anywhere, right? So I'm legal to drive in all 48 states, basically. And so I said, Colter, you're like, hey man, if you can get to Frisco, you can do some work and we can get you a credential and a place to stay and like all that kind of stuff. I said, okay, let me at least try it. So there are no runs for a guy like me going from Western Montana to Dallas, Texas. So you kind of got to piece it together. So I found one going to Casper, Wyoming. It was a tractor. I think I can say this is if I was going to an RDO equipment. And I only mention that because it's huge, right? I mean, it probably is like honestly a 5-acre property. The building itself is like the front of house sales thing, but then there's this huge service area, shop area at the back. But then it's surrounded by backhoes and tractors and four-wheelers and trailers and ATVs and all kinds of stuff all over the place. And anybody who does, who works in the farm equipment world knows exactly what I'm talking about. They close at 5:00. Now, I understand, like, if a grocery store closes at 5, like, okay, the public can no longer come in and shop here, okay, but there's still the closing stuff that has to happen or whatever. But I understood, like, hey, you got to be here by 5 p.m. in order to deliver this thing today. And by the way, it was a Friday. So I got snowed out. I tried to leave 1:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, excuse me, on Thursday morning. Couldn't get up the hill out of Polson because it was the first snow, ice, everything, slid off the road, had to chain up and drive home. Took me 90 minutes to go 3 miles down and back on Highway 93 in the middle of the night. And I was just, I was in a mood, to say the very least, Colter, trying to make you happy and go down to Frisco. So I was like, well, finally, I was able to get out on Thursday afternoon. I stayed the night in Helena because I had dropped off a second load there. And then I had this tractor that I'm taking down to Casper. I get up, crack of dawn, bang, I'm on the road. I did not eat the entire day, okay? I didn't stop for coffee. I stopped 4 times to get fuel and twice for way stations, which are required by law. So those were my stops, the absolute only necessities, period. I rolled into the RDO equipment 4:45 p.m. And this is like, it sounds like I'm making it up in terms of the time. I was 15 minutes before close, but I made it. And I go in and there's 40 people milling around the sales floor and everything. I mean, all kinds of people. And one guy's looking, I don't know about where did this load come in? Hey, Frank, come over here. Hey, Dave, look at this, whatever. Finally, they send somebody out. They say, pull up along the side of the building. So I do. I drop the ramps down. They back off this unit, get it off, paperwork signed, done. Beautiful. Now it's 5:00, by the time it actually gets unloaded and everything like that. I'm like, thank God. Okay, now what? Now I can try and find something down to Denver or maybe out of Denver down to Texas or something, where we have a little more commerce going. And I'm trying to figure out what my next move is. I close the ramps. I'm putting my equipment away. I look up 5:10. The gates to leave are closed.
They just left you in there.
The guy who's closing the gates is on the other side of the gate, locking it. And I see him. And I'm like, well, maybe it's just this gate and they're like this, they're shutting this one. There was 40 people in there. I start like I go, hey. Now I'm probably honestly like 100 yards away from him, right? Because it's such a big place. So, but it's a direct line of sight, and I kind of start jogging, and I see like, no, it's locked. He's turning around. Now I start getting frantic, screaming, waving, running as fast as I can run, which ain't fast, but it's what I got. Screaming at this guy. It was straight out of a movie, Colter. As I get to the gate, his truck is pulling out. I don't know why he wouldn't hear me, couldn't hear me. He might have been on the phone, like on a headpiece thing, or what was going on. But I am screaming, hey, 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 waving my hands, running. I get to the gate. He pulls out. I start running along the fence line like a dog, chasing a car inside of a fence at somebody's yard, screaming at the top of my lungs. Gone. I'm locked in at the RDO equipment in Casper, Wyoming for the weekend. It's Friday. It's not even like wait till tomorrow. And I lost it, dude. I went into full meltdown mode. Like,
Oh man.
Sometimes we find ourselves and we end up in situations and you just can't believe it. A lot of times it's like, if you are in, or especially if you cause an accident of some sort, or I mean, I have a buddy who was, I won't get into all the circumstances, but a good friend of mine who was adrift at sea in the water in a life jacket, thinking that, well, this is it. This is how I die, because he got disconnected from his party while he was out in the ocean scuba diving. Whoa. and was just, that was it. He was alone in the ocean. And like, you just sit there and contemplate, how did I do this? How did this happen? Now, obviously, my circumstance is not even as I tell it now. It's the least dire thing. But I will tell you this: it's 8-foot high chain link fence with 2-foot high barbed wire above that.
No chance of
like there's no. I mean, I could get out, but then I'm in the industrial district. Like, I'm actually 3-4 miles from the town of Casper with no vehicle. Like, I'm just out here, and I lost it for a minute. I was just screaming at the sky, like, how could this happen? I'm trying to get to Frisco, and I'm dead in the water. I went up and started reefing on the front doors, and I honestly, dude, I almost pulled the locked doors open. I was in such a tizzy, and I thought to myself, this was my logical thinking: if I can set off the alarm, somebody will come, And I thought about the A team and driving the van through the gates and busting out, doing that whole thing. And I'm like, this is insane. It took me about 20 or 30 minutes. I walked the entire property to see, like, for sure, am I actually the last person? So you're telling me 40 people drove out of here in 5 minutes after 5 o'clock? Like, everybody hates their job at this place. I mean, they are out. And is there another gate somewhere that no, you're in here. That's it. And so then you make peace with it, and then you go, okay. So I called the police. I called 911. I mean, what do you do? I don't know. Like, you could call, you call the RDO, the equipment place, and then nobody's answering. It's all, straight to voicemail, and you can't email. I mean, there's nobody. So the gal on the other end, bless her, this dispatcher, was she didn't laugh, but I think I was her favorite call of the day. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, what's your emergency? And I was like, I'm locked in at a tractor manufacturer. I'm locked in. I don't know what to do. And she goes, okay. She's like, we'll get a squad car out there. And she's like, we'll try and get in touch with, ownership or whatever. And about a half an hour went by and I sat there and nobody came. And I really was hoping a police officer would come just so I could have somebody to talk to. Like you need another human just for the sanity of it. And he could stand out on the other side of the gate and I could stand on this side and we could just be like, how was your day? I'm going to need dinner soon. I still haven't eaten, right? I'm just starving. Where should I go in Casper for a nice meal? All this kind of stuff. And nobody ever, or, no police officer ever came. And I was very close to like calling back and being like, look, I know it's not an emergency per se, but really like I just need someone here. So, because I've now been here for an hour or better. Finally, a truck pulls up and a guy gets out of the car, whether it's the owner or the general manager. And I'm standing there looking at him and he goes, this place clears out pretty quick on a Friday, don't it? I was like, and I wasn't even mad at that point. I was just happy that this was getting resolved.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm getting a hotel. I'm going to get some food. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to recalibrate my whole mental emotional state here. And I'm going to see what's going on. And I did faithfully look for loads going down to Texas, going someplace that might get me in the vicinity. But also you got to understand, I can't drive anymore now legally.
Right.
It's Friday. I'm 1,100 miles from Texas. So first thing best I could do is like Saturday morning, get up and start driving. I still wouldn't make it. And just the time it takes, like if I was to find something that I could carry down even in the area, it became a bridge too far. And so the next day I was looking for all kinds of things. I was also writing articles for Skyline Sports MT. Thank you very much.
Yes, you were.
And sorry, excuse me. I just sort of had an epiphany. It was like a nice day. I don't know if you've driven. So I don't think it's I-15. It was like I-90 down into Wyoming, and then you turn off onto I-25. But it's a full-on interstate. Colter, it's gated. The wind and the snow get so wild, they full-on shut down the interstate. Like, no. It's behind a gate. You can't drive this like it's Logan Pass or something. And it was a nice day. It was sunny, but it was cold. And I knew there was some weather going. I said, I'm getting on the other side of this thing. I'm going back north. And I started driving. I made it to Billings that night. That was Saturday night. And of all places, I ended up getting a hotel because I had found another load for myself coming out of Three Forks. So I went and I stayed the night in Bozeman, Montana, and I watched the game from the comfort of my hotel room on Sunday in Bozeman, of all places, and sort of like reflected on what my life has become.
God. Amazing.
So,
well,
this
is
is
a great effort.
It's what I do. Yeah, I mean, yes and no. It was a great effort initially. I will tell you, like, the only reason I went to Casper, because it was not well paying and it was not worth my time, was because I needed to try and get to Frisco. But when it all falls apart, there's a moment where you just go, okay, it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
I know your situation. You wanted to be there more than everything except for one thing.
That's right.
And that one thing is coming your way here soon, but you don't know when. And you're sitting there going, well, I could probably get there and back. Like, what am I, is it going to be? Is it a problem? And then at some point you just got to accept, no, I'm going to be here and it's going to be okay. And, the sun will rise.
Yep.
Have you or a loved one been charged or accused of a crime? If so, the stress can leave anyone feeling helpless and alone. But you don't have to be alone. Hi, I'm Dave Maldonado, and I've successfully defended Montanans for over a decade in these situations. So if you're tired of being scared, let's get you prepared. To see how, visit BigSkyDefender.com today.
You are not alone. Visit BigSkyDefender.com to find out more on how you can fight back against local and federal criminal charges.
So you and I, peas in a pod. Cheers. Great way to finish out the college football year. I will tell you this. It's still, and the NFL too, wildly disappointing football. I mean, the last good football game were the semifinals of college football.
Yeah,
and there
no,
wasn't one more.
The Lions-Rams game was great.
I was going to say there was not one more good game until the Lions game. But the Lions game was the only good game of the wild card weekend.
Yeah, but see, here's where I'm at. Watching the Cowboys get slaughtered and watching the Browns shit their pants like they always do, and watching the Eagles just become a complete abomination and just completely just melt into nothing. That's awesome. That's good football to me, even if it's lopsided results.
Now, I agree with you on the Cowboys, and let me be very clear on the Packers game.
Yeah.
That was an absolute thrill for 60 full minutes. Every second of it was great. That I'm not even closeted. I'm a full-on Browns fan, like AFC. I root for Cleveland, and that was terrible to watch. But the AFC version of the Packers is the Houston Texans. I mean, with CJ Stroud, I mean, that team is the real deal, and I think they're going to give Baltimore everything they want.
No doubt.
I am totally in disagreement with you on the Eagles-Bucks game. That was awful to watch. It was the completion of a full implosion, the likes of which I have never seen before in the NFL.
Which is what I like. I like seeing
I mean, it's fine, but dude, in the NFL in general, you don't see a lot of actually bad football. Like, one team can be totally outmatched, but you don't see really bad football. And then even more particularly in the playoffs, you don't see it. That was as embarrassing. The Dolphins in Kansas City and the Eagles last night in Tampa was two of the most embarrassing defensive performances I've ever seen in professional football. And at least with the Dolphins, you can say they completely caved to the temps, to the weather, and all of that. But I mean, the utter disinterest in making a tackle, in making a play defensively, was it was an abomination. Like it was, and I don't know how Matt Patricia keeps getting work. Show me one thing that this dude has done. I realize he's supposed to be a whiz kid, schemes and all that kind of stuff, but like, you can't get people to play football. You cannot do it. And he's never done it, ever.
He's never done it. Even when the only reason he ever had any success because he coached the greatest defensive coach of all time in New England.
Right. Like, I mean, he knows a lot, but like, you at some point, like, this is the same thing with is it now I'm getting him. It's not Mike McDaniel because he's in Miami, but the McDaniels, who was the Raiders coach.
Josh McDaniels.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Exact same thing. Like, you can know the whole universe of football, but when you walk out there and you're a total dirter and nobody respects you and nobody likes you, no one will play for you.
That's right.
And it's incomprehensible how these dudes keep floating around.
Yeah.
So anyhow, there's my diatribe on that. But I am stunned and have no answers or explanation, just like everybody, for what happened in Philadelphia. I mean, I know they lost both their coordinators last year, but they still got to 10-1. And then very weirdly made a change at defensive coordinator when they were 10-1 or 10-2. And it got worse.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of smoke. And I don't know where the fire is, but it's burning in Philadelphia in terms of what was going on internally over there, for sure. And, you hate to see, obviously, a guy like Jason Kelsey, walk off the field for the last time out of that dumpster fire. It's a shame that it looks like that. But that was awful. So now move me on to the divisional round. The divisional round is setting up nice though.
Well,
That
that's
is going to
good.
be some great football.
Well, here's the deal then. We'll keep on tracking some Griz and Bobcat news. I got some pretty open-ended discussions to have with you, and maybe we'll do one next week so we can talk a little NFL as well. But thanks for doing this
I-
with us here 2 days in a row, a little 2-part Tuesdays with Tootell.
The complete treat every time. You're a beautiful man. Thank you.